The spring of
here in the valley.
1897 arrived slowly
dangerous
across the
path.
Wyoming Territory.
We'll make it through.
Winter had finally loosened its grip, leaving behind muddy trails, swollen rivers, and thousands of acres of damaged grazing land. Along the rolling prairie stood the legendary Blackstone Ranch, a sprawling 4,000-acre spread that generations of cowboys admired. For 3 decades, one man had poured his
Good
life
afternoon,
into
sir.
every fence
Welcome to the
post,
Blackstone,
every
man.
barn, every
Hope the
herd,
journey wasn't
and
too
every
tiring.
inch of that land. His name was Samuel Blackstone. At 63 years old, Samuel was known across the frontier as one of the toughest ranchers in the West. His weathered face carried the marks of countless cattle drives, brutal winters, and endless summers beneath the Wyoming sun. His broad shoulders were no longer as strong as they had once been, but his determination remained unshaken. People respected him. Some feared him. Everyone knew his word was worth more than any contract. Every morning before sunrise, Samuel rode his favorite chestnut horse across the ranch, checking fences, greeting ranch hands, and watching the sunrise over the endless prairie. It was a routine he had followed for nearly 30 years. But this year was different. A violent spring storm had torn through the valley 3 nights earlier. Hundreds of fence posts lay broken across the fields. The south barn had partially collapsed. Several cattle had wandered into neighboring land. Miles of irrigation ditches had washed away. Standing beside the damaged corral, Samuel removed his dusty brown hat and sighed deeply. "I've rebuilt this place before," he whispered to himself, "but never this much." His foreman, Tom Harper, rode toward him. "It's worse than we thought." Samuel nodded silently. Tom handed him a notebook. "I counted nearly 8 miles of fencing gone." Samuel slowly closed the notebook. "We'll fix it." Tom hesitated. "With who?" Samuel looked around. Only 6 ranch hands remained. Years earlier, nearly 40 men had worked Blackstone Ranch. Most had left for growing railroad towns or booming mining camps. Labor was scarce. Money was tighter than Samuel admitted. For the first time in decades, he wasn't sure he could save the ranch. Late that afternoon, Samuel rode toward the ranch entrance. The old wooden gate leaned sideways after the storm. As he approached, he noticed someone standing there. A woman. She wore a simple gray prairie dress beneath a faded brown shawl. Her boots were dusty from travel. A small leather satchel rested beside her feet. She stood quietly, staring at the broken ranch sign. Samuel slowed his horse. "Can I help you?" The woman looked up. Her face showed exhaustion, but also quiet determination. "My name is Clara Bennett." Samuel nodded politely. "And I'm looking for work." Samuel almost smiled. "You picked the wrong ranch." She glanced toward the broken fences. "I don't think I did." Samuel crossed his arms. "We don't hire many women. I'm not asking for charity." He studied her carefully. She couldn't have been older than 30. She looked too refined for ranch work. "Have you ever worked cattle?" "No." "Built fences?" "No." "Broken horses?" She smiled slightly. "No." Samuel shrugged. "Then I don't have work for you." Instead of leaving, Clara walked toward the broken gate. She picked up one of the fallen fence rails, examined it carefully, then looked back at Samuel. "This gate isn't broken." Samuel frowned. "It certainly looks broken." She knelt beside the hinge. One large iron bolt had pulled free. She searched the ground, found it buried beneath the mud. Within moments, she slid the bolt back into place. The gate stood upright again. Tom, who had been watching from nearby, laughed softly. "I've been trying to fix that all morning." Clara brushed dirt from her hands. "It wasn't broken. It was loose." Samuel climbed down from his horse. For the first time, he looked at her with genuine curiosity. "Where did you learn that?" "My husband." "You were married?" She nodded quietly. "He built ranches." Samuel noticed the small silver wedding band she still wore. "I'm sorry." She smiled sadly. "So am I." Silence settled between them. The wind carried the scent of fresh grass across the valley. Finally, Samuel asked the question that changed everything. "How long have you been a widow?" "Almost 2 years. And now, I need honest work." Samuel glanced across the damaged ranch, then back at Clara. Something about her calm confidence reminded him of someone he had known long ago. Someone who never saw problems, only solutions. He finally nodded. "I can pay $1 a day." Clara smiled. "I'll start now." Tom whispered to Samuel. "You sure about this?" Samuel watched Clara pick up another broken fence rail. No, but I have a feeling she's here for a reason. Neither of them realized that within 7 days, the quiet widow standing beside the broken gate would accomplish something seasoned cowboys believed was impossible, and in doing so she would save not only Blackstone Ranch, but the lonely old cowboy who had forgotten what hope looked like. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight stretched across the Wyoming prairie as the Blackstone Ranch slowly came to life. Cowboys saddled horses, cattle drifted across the open fields, and the smell of fresh coffee floated from the bunkhouse. Samuel Blackstone had been awake for hours. From the porch of the ranch house, he watched Clara Bennett walking alone toward the damaged south pasture. She carried nothing more than a hammer, a coil of wire, and a small notebook tucked beneath her arm. Tom Harper stepped beside Samuel. She really thinks one woman can help rebuild this place? Samuel shrugged. We'll know by sunset. Instead of beginning repairs immediately, Clara carefully walked the entire ranch. She measured broken fence lines, counted damaged posts, examined collapsed barns, checked the water troughs. She even inspected the windmill that supplied water to the cattle. Nearly 3 hours passed. Tom laughed. She's sightseeing. Samuel wasn't so sure. Late in the morning, Clara returned carrying pages of handwritten notes. She spread them across the large wooden table outside the barn. The ranch hands gathered around. What are we looking at? One cowboy asked. Clara pointed to the map. We're rebuilding this ranch the wrong way. Several men exchanged confused looks. Tom crossed his arms. Explain. She calmly divided the ranch into 6 work areas. If everyone keeps fixing random problems, we'll waste days. She pointed toward the map. First, repair every water source. Second, rebuild only the main fences. Third, gather the scattered cattle. Then repair the barns. Samuel leaned closer. You planned all this? She nodded. My husband taught me something. What? When people panic they stop thinking. Silence filled the table. For the first time, every cowboy listened. By noon, everyone had assignments. No one argued. Even Tom admitted her plan made sense. Instead of 6 men working separately, they now worked together. Before sunset, 3 water pumps were repaired. 2 miles of fencing stood again. Nearly 50 missing cattle had been returned. Samuel couldn't hide his surprise. He found Clara repairing a broken wagon wheel. You've done this before. She smiled. My husband believed every ranch survives because people help each other. Samuel sat beside her. What happened to him? Her hands became still. Fever. How long were you married? 9 years. I'm sorry. She looked toward the horizon. So was he. Samuel nodded quietly. Neither spoke for several minutes. That evening, dark clouds gathered again. A ranch hand came riding hard from the north pasture. Mr. Blackstone. Samuel stood. What happened? Horses. Whose? I don't know. They've been riding along the northern fence all afternoon. Tom looked worried. Cattle thieves. Maybe. Samuel grabbed his rifle. I'll take a look. Before he mounted his horse, Clara spoke. Don't. He turned. Why? They want you to chase them. Every cowboy stared at her. Samuel frowned. How do you know? She walked toward the ranch map. If I wanted to steal cattle I'd create a distraction. She pointed toward the north pasture. They're drawing everyone away. Then she pointed south. The real thieves will come from here. Tom looked shocked. That's where the broken fence still is. Clara nodded. Exactly. Samuel immediately gave new orders. Tom, take 3 men south. I'll stay here. The ranch hands quickly rode away. Less than an hour later, gunshots echoed across the southern pasture. Then came another sound. The ranch bell. Tom returned just before sunset. He was smiling. You were right. Clara looked up. They tried driving to 100 cattle through the broken fence. Samuel slowly removed his hat. If we'd all gone north Tom nodded. They would have emptied half the ranch. Every cowboy looked at Clara with newfound respect. Samuel smiled. You may have saved this ranch today. Clara answered softly. I just paid attention. That night the ranch gathered for supper. For the first time in years, laughter echoed through the dining hall. Cowboys joked. Stories filled the room. Even Samuel smiled more than once. Clara quietly ate beside the window. She seemed uncomfortable with the attention. After dinner, Samuel stepped outside. The stars filled the Wyoming sky. Clara joined him. "It's beautiful here." Samuel looked across his land. "I used to think so every day. And now, I've been too busy worrying." She smiled gently. "My husband always said ... A ranch isn't measured by acres." Samuel looked at her. "It's measured by the people willing to fight for it." He smiled. "I think I'd have liked your husband." "So would I." For a moment, neither noticed the rider watching from a distant hill. The stranger lowered his spyglass, turned his horse, and disappeared into the darkness. Far away, someone had learned that Blackstone Ranch was growing stronger, and they had no intention of letting that happen. The first rays of the morning sun stretched across the Wyoming prairie, bathing Blackstone Ranch in golden light. Only a week earlier, the land had looked broken and defeated. Miles of damaged fences, collapsed barns, frightened cattle, and exhausted ranch hands had made Samuel Blackstone wonder if 30 years of hard work had finally come to an end. Now, everything looked different. Fresh fence lines stretched across the hills. The repaired windmill turned steadily in the breeze. The cattle grazed peacefully across the green pastures. The rebuilt south barn stood stronger than before. Cowboys laughed as they worked. For the first time in years, Blackstone Ranch felt alive again. Samuel stood quietly on the front porch, coffee cup in hand, watching the sunrise. Tom Harper walked over with a wide smile. "I've never seen this place look better." Samuel nodded. "Neither have I." Tom chuckled. "And all because one widow walked through a broken gate." Samuel smiled without saying a word. Later that morning, every ranch hand gathered near the main barn. Clara stood before them holding her notebook. "I have one final job." Everyone listened. She unfolded a large hand-drawn map of the ranch. "This isn't just a ranch anymore." She pointed toward several empty fields. "These acres can grow hay." She pointed toward another section. "That land is perfect for horses." Another section. "Plant fruit trees here." Samuel looked surprised. "You planned all this?" Clara smiled. "My husband always believed a ranch should survive every season." Tom laughed. "Looks like he was right." The men immediately began working. By afternoon, dozens of new fence posts stood in place. Young trees were planted. Water channels were repaired. The ranch looked stronger than it had in decades. Just as everyone gathered for lunch... A cloud of dust appeared along the eastern road. 3 elegant wagons rolled toward the ranch. Behind them rode several well-dressed businessmen. Samuel frowned. "I know that wagon." Tom looked nervous. "Richard Holloway, one of the largest landowners in Wyoming." Richard stepped down wearing an expensive black coat. He smiled politely. "Mr. Blackstone." Samuel nodded. "What brings you here?" Richard slowly looked around the ranch. "I came to buy it." Several cowboys exchanged angry looks. Samuel answered calmly. "It's not for sale." Richard smiled again. "Everything has a price." He removed a leather pouch filled with gold coins. "I'll pay double its value." Samuel never looked at the money. "No." Richard's smile disappeared. "You've had a difficult year." Samuel remained silent. "I know your debts." Still, no answer. Richard pointed toward the rebuilt ranch. "You can't keep this place forever." Before Samuel could respond, Clara quietly stepped forward. "You came 1 week too late." Richard looked at her. "And you are?" "The reason this ranch still stands." The ranch hands smiled proudly. Richard laughed. "A widow thinks she can stop me?" Clara calmly reached into her satchel. She removed several official documents. Samuel looked confused. "What are those?" She handed them to him. "My husband was a surveyor." Samuel slowly opened the papers. His eyes widened. The original government land survey, signed 32 years earlier. It proved Blackstone Ranch legally owned an additional 500 acres. Richard had been claiming for years. Tom whispered, "That's impossible." Richard's face turned pale. "You stole those." Clara answered calmly, "They belonged to my husband." Samuel looked toward Richard. "I think this meeting is over." Richard grabbed the papers. Sheriff Miller's voice interrupted. "I wouldn't do that." Everyone turned. The sheriff had arrived with 2 deputies. He walked directly toward Richard. "We've been looking for those documents." Richard slowly released them. Sheriff Miller smiled. "Seems your land claims haven't exactly been honest." The businessmen quietly mounted their horses. Richard looked at Samuel one last time. "This isn't finished." Samuel smiled. "It is." The sheriff watched them ride away. "They'll be answering questions in town." For the first time, Samuel felt completely free. Several weeks passed. Summer arrived across Wyoming. Blackstone Ranch became one of the busiest ranches in the territory. Families returned to work. Young cowboys asked for jobs. Travelers stopped simply to admire the famous ranch that had been rebuilt in only 1 week. Newspapers even wrote about it. The widow who saved Blackstone Ranch. Clara hated the attention. Samuel simply smiled. One evening, the ranch gathered for a celebration. Long wooden tables filled the yard. Music echoed across the prairie. Children played beside the barn. Cowboys laughed around campfires. Samuel slowly stood. The crowd became quiet. He looked toward Clara. "When you arrived, I thought I was hiring another worker." He smiled warmly. "I was wrong. You gave this ranch something money never could." He paused. "You gave us hope." Every ranch hand applauded. Samuel handed Clara an old wooden box. Inside rested the original deed to a small piece of land beside the river. She looked up in surprise. "I can't accept this." Samuel smiled. "You already earned it." Tears filled Clara's eyes. "My husband always dreamed of owning a place like this." Samuel nodded. Now his dream lives on. The entire ranch stood and applauded once more. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the Wyoming hills, Samuel and Clara looked across the endless prairie together. The fences were strong. The barns were full. The cattle grazed peacefully. The ranch had survived, not because of wealth, not because of strength, but because one lonely widow chose to help a stranger without expecting anything in return. Sometimes, the greatest miracles don't come from fortune. They come from kindness. And sometimes, one person can rebuild far more than a ranch. They can rebuild a heart. The end. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional Old West adventures, inspiring cowboy stories, and unforgettable frontier journeys every week. Thank you for watching.